There is a lot of talk between the China and US trade war. But you're looking over here, there is a conflict. There's a conflict between the US and China and Pakistan. The conflict is about the global dominance. Pakistan financial security is hanging at stake. If China succeed, it can be a part that Pakistan can become a superpower in economic. But if it's failed, it can frustrate US as well. Either way, the both will be fall in the decades and a fall. To understand we got here, we have to first understand why China is here in Pakistan. China is there to invest in infrastructure, a part of an effort to put a friendship with Pakistan for the economic benefits. This fall across in the China Belt Road Initiative. President Xi Jinping was in Islamabad when he tried to expand the region within the next few years. But the One Belt Road Initiative is across 68 countries. A couple of things you want to know about the initiative. If you're in the US, why are you frustrated? US still have a high GDP rate, but China is gaining ground. Take for example, like the fact that US is the largest economy in the world in 1213, but China's passed the US in 2018. Now the two superpower in neck and neck. The second neck to know is that China is giving a huge loan to countries that are never willing to repay back. First, for example, China funded construction in Sri Lanka. China funded construction in Macedonia. China funds construction in Bulgaria. And why? Because they know that they cannot repay back. China secure a port in the Sri Lanka in the strategic currency. Some people defend it like this is a diplomacy and worried the China diplomacy and worried many across the country. So why we are confident across this? China Belt Road Initiative project have taken is to plan, and the CPAC is one of the initiatives that China is using in this. China, you want to use the high ports. China want to use the seaports. China also want to have a road going across from Pakistan that will connect the Pakistan, like the Chinese province that will connect in the Asian water. And from this, it will go deeper and deeper, and that will have an access to the Iran, have an access to the Middle East. So the problem, why still the problem arises with the US? Because of its strategic location, because of its strategic agenda. The country that are in Pakistan, for example, the country already is in a state of bankrupt. China find it, it's like China find it, it's ability and just want to invest in the power project energies. But some lawmakers in the US are concerned about the concerned think tank in the US. They are just trying to convince the IMF not to give the money, because why? China is in a situation of a debt trap Pakistan, and when IMF give the money to the Pakistan, they will give that money back to the China. So US is worried about that, and also US have to make happy one of its co-ally, the Indian as well. So why China One Belt One Road Initiative is the most ambitious structure in the history. It's designed to reconnect the places along the Asian Silk Road and way beyond. There are currently $900 billion, almost $1 trillion of work project going across the world, and some European countries are feeling the impact. So the estimate $15 billion of investment in the Central and Eastern Europe has been put on the Belt and Road. There are roads, there are railways that are connected those European and Baltic states. But the Chinese, this money is always get it profit for nothing, because in the Montenegro and in Macedonia they are building the structures. But the project is the centric idea, like how to make it like a historic. Because in Montenegro, they are making a highway. A highway there is, I think the Montenegro people don't need it. A highway is just like just a passageway with no industries all around. The property is cheap. The people are unemployed. So this is like a win-win. This is like a golden opportunity for the Chinese to invest in Macedonia and to put on the two-lane road like a highway. There's much opposition going on in the Democratic Republic of Montenegro. The opposition are just trying like that, how the government give this kind of a debt project to the Chinese. But the government have its own ambition. They say like some sort of infrastructure, some sort of development should go on. It's not a debt threat. But as far as like the GDP is concerned, when we see the economic situation of Montenegro and the money that are just putting in by the One Belt One Road initiative, so this sort of things very making angry, and the governments, and not in the governments but also the opposition, and this sort of things make things very terrible for the Caucasians. There's another things that we need to understand, like why China is targeting the developing countries. Because they don't have the technology, they don't have the money, they don't have the power of labor or anything. So it's a golden opportunity for China to put their own people in work, to put their money in work, and implement and put their own companies. Most of the companies that are blacklisted in China, but they're quietly working in Montenegro, Macedonia, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Myanmar. The Chinese government guaranteed the loans with the sectors. But they know if in the next few years in the future they don't get the money repay back, they at least get the strategic location by connecting the 68 countries. While the Eastern European countries, mostly in Germany, the France, they're still worried about like how these Eastern European countries going towards the China debt trap. There are concerns going on in Europe as well. Why China is in a situation of a debt trap Pakistan, and when IMF give the money to the Pakistan, they will give that money back to the China. So US is worried about that, and also US has to make happy one of its co-ally, the Indian as well. So why the plan is to develop the Pakistan infrastructure. China could use those highways that are built without a free toll, and when they have access to the entire Indian Ocean. Number second, why China is investing in the energy sector? Because in the future China is planning to put their industry in Pakistan, and they want to use it. They produce the electricity, and they give do not give the hydroelectric power. They're just giving the power on the coal basis, which is not environmental friendly. And in this case, the Pakistan will not be able to pay back. Give the Chinese authority an indication like, okay, in the next month, in the next future, in the next year, Pakistan is expecting like the IMF will bail out. At least it need a $12 billion now, so they're going to the IMF. But there's some concerns on the US. They're putting sanctions on Pakistan militarily, cut down their deficits, cut down their military aid. Now they are just have another chance to go to the IMF to bail out package. But some people in the US, they are very concerned about the US dollars, because they're thinking like if they give the US dollar, IMF give US dollar, Pakistan will repay back its debt to China. Why US is not in a war of trade war with China, they don't want to give. So the US is expect this is an opportunity like to hurt China by pressurize Pakistan. There are terms and conditions the IMF gonna impose upon. After that they will give the leverage. Now there is a new government of Imran Khan, the PTI party. So they are in a sense of doubt that they want to know like how they're going to cope with this financial crisis. The financial crisis in this situation is like it hurting the economy. On one hand, they are just trying to go to the US, and on another hand, they are just want to try and rely on the Saudi and China's money as well. So the Imran Khan is in a very clever position. He want to play the cards like the strategic cards. Even he can borrow more money from China just to cope up with foster their economy. Also, there is a chance like he can get the money from the Saudi as well. But Saudi in relations are also pressurized by the US. Why Saudi is coming into the One Road Belt initiative? Because of the US pressurized the Saudi to invest the money in the CPEC for the future gains. But some clerics and some economic pundits, they says like Pakistan is playing its cards, and this make unhappy the neighboring India about this. But that's why the US and China are now in a drag-or-dance situation in Pakistan. Pakistan has to play its card. If you check on some historical facts, like the historical facts, right, one can read from the history what sort of things is good or bad. If you check some historical facts, Sri Lanka is one of the prime example. Why they take a lot of debt? Their debt to the total GDP was just a little bit more above. And when the Humberto port, the China built for the Sri Lankans, the terms and conditions was not very defined because of the corrupt politician and all those officials involved in signing those projects. was China. What China did? China promised Sri Lanka that we will give you a debt, right? So in return, it will give you an economical boom in your country. The money not coming around into the state bank, but only controlled by the China and controlled by the Chinese worker, the Chinese engineer, the Chinese equipments. All they bring to the Hambantota and make a huge port. But the paper was signed, and it was just like, I don't understand the project appraisal at that time, because as a student from the CIMA and I a student from the chartered management accountant, when I see the appraisal project, it was never been a win-win situation. China will never able, Sri Lanka will never been able to get the profit of that about that project. So one day Chinese people coming and say, right, if you sign this project, what will happen? We will give you 1 million tourists in 1 year, then we will give you another $50 billion in an investment, and you're going to sign for that? Because Sri Lanka was never in need of the Hambantota port, but China needed for their strategical point, for their strategical tactic. So Sri Lanka was in a debt threat. Same China is doing with the underdeveloped countries. While for the underdeveloped countries, the money is the big thing, investment is the big thing, so they're coming in a debt threat to that. For China would then achieve a major objective in the One Belt One Road initiative of having a strategic presence in the Hambantota in Sri Lanka, while covering this Indian Pacific Ocean, while coming through the China South Sea, and they can their ships can stay in the Hambantota. But what the Sri Lanka were doing? They have nothing. They will have one airport, having a very fancy airport, high-class building rise, where Chinese tourists coming and stay in their hotel and just looting their economy. This is the number one reason of a huge debt, huge loan. So the next big example is that of the Latin American country Venezuela. In fact, the example of Venezuela is like a politically and financially high-risk country. But China loves to invest in high-risk countries, and they like to invest in those kind of countries. From 2008 to 2018, $52 billion of investment China put in Venezuela. Nobody was running those kind of businesses. While self-citizens, Venezuelans, they want to run from the country, but China loves to invest. So the Chinese investment in a single country, as far many hold the answer, it created a lot of win-win scenario for the China. But it's never been a win-win scenario for Venezuela. You see their currency there will devalue a lot, the interest rate going up to the record high, 60% interest rate, never seen anywhere in the world. Why is that? The inflation rate so high, people have no food to eat. But you know, the marrying of China and Venezuela is just a win-win situation for China. And China looted their economy. And all the loans that China were giving, it was just backed up by the commodity base. What the commodity, you know? Venezuela have oil, so China get oil, cheap oil, in return for their investment. They don't want any money back. They just only want to grab the oil from Venezuela and run the super fast economy of China in Beijing and Shanghai. So this is the history of China. When they want to invest someplace, they want to rig the economy. They want to wreck the economy. So Donald Trump was a little bit of anxious about that. That's why he said like China, we don't want Chinese to come into our country. We don't want their investment. China wrecked the US economy. There was some scenario, there was something behind that.